This time on Engine Masters, it is the camshaft firing order showdown. Does the 4-7 swap make power? We're gonna find out. You know, guys make a whole lot of claims about what does and doesn't make extra horsepower, and here on Engine Masters, we test that stuff. This time, it's 4 and 7 swap camshafts, which you can buy routinely in the aftermarket. They change the firing order in your engine and supposedly make more horsepower, but is it true? Now to begin, let me tell you what firing order is. It is the sequence inside your engine in which the cylinders reach their power stroke. You probably know it better as when the spark is going out to the cylinders, because it's how you put your spark plug wires on your distributor. So that is the firing order, and the super common one is 184366572. It's used in Chevys, Mopars, Buicks, Pontiacs, a lot of Oldsmobiles, not all of them, AMCs, Studebakers, Internationals. It's even used in Fords. See, Ford numbers the cylinders differently on the engine, but if you take the old school firing order that you'd find in like a Ford FE or a 289 or even a 460 big block, and you rearrange the cylinders and number them as if it were a Chevy, it's the same, 184366572. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can alter your firing order if you've got a V8 with a 90-degree bank. We have what's called companion cylinders, 1 and 6, 8 and 5, 4 and 7, 3 and 2. Each of those pairs of cylinders reach top dead center of the piston at the same time. But the crankshaft doesn't know what stroke it's on, it just knows that the piston's at top dead center and bottom dead center. For example, 1 and 6, they're traveling up and down at the same time. It's the camshaft that determines what stroke it's on. So you can alter the layout of your cam to change the firing order, and that's exactly what we're gonna test here. If you look really closely at these two camshafts, you can see what I'm talking about. You can see I've got them both lined up at the front, exactly on their dowel pin. But if you look back here at, let's say, the number 7 cylinder, which is gonna be these two lobes here and here, and here, you can see that they are exactly reversed. So by changing the camshaft, we're changing the valve opening and closing of vents and altering which stroke that piston is on as it's going up and down. Now, why would this make power? Well, there's a lot of theories about that. Some people say it's pulsing in the intake manifold and how the air-fuel distribution is going down all the different ports. Other people say that it has to do with crankshaft harmonics, about how you're putting the load on the crankshaft in a different place because different cylinders are firing at a different time. That's a lot of mumbo jumbo when it comes down to whether it really makes a difference in your engine or not, whether it's gonna make power. And so while there's both 4 and 7 swaps and also 3 and 2, which would be the LS firing order when you swap both things, what we're gonna test here is only the 4 and 7 swap because it's the most common in the aftermarket. You can buy a lot of off-the-shelf camshafts that have this swap going for them. And I understand from some engine builders that it's the only firing order that really can make extra power. We're gonna find out. Here's our victim today. It is a 572 cubic inch Chevrolet big block. Now, I understand from some engine builders that the 4 and 7 swap makes a bigger difference the larger the displacement is on the engine. And I think maybe that means the longer the stroke on the crankshaft. And so, you know, to give it the best possible test and the benefit of the doubt, that's why we ran the 572. This one's a stock General Motors crate engine in the bottom end. On the top end, we've got AFR 335cc heads. It's got a comp cam in it that they custom ground for us just for this test. It's 269 degrees at 50, the duration on the intake, and on the exhaust side, it's 277. They're on 113 degree lobe separation angle. Up top, we have the stock GM intake manifold, a Holley 1150 CFM Dominator, and I gotta throw out a huge shout out and thank you to Trend Performance for getting us push rods on their quick ship program like that, so that we'd be ready to do this test. So we're gonna roll this thing into the dyno. The first camshaft is your standard 184366572, and then we'll be doing the 4 and 7 swap to see what it does for us. Every big block Chevy day is a good day, right?
Absolutely.
We'll see what this thing does.
Are you a convert on the big block Chevy?
Oh, I've put it in print in the Engine Masters magazine days that That's the go-to power plant for big power numbers. This is a big block Chevy.
Yeah.
I made the change in high school.
No, I think I converted, I don't know, probably in my CarCraft days.
Yeah.
About the time I realized. So
Well,
we're
just
talking 20 years ago.
Gets to the point where you just can't help it. There's no more excuses left.
It's the best thing.
Well, I mean, it's got the most aftermarket development, too. I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best architecture of any engine ever designed.
No.
But the development and the aftermarket support is undeniable.
To me, it's all about the displacement. In this case, 572. That's the key.
Yeah.
So 1-843-6572. Ready?
Okay.
Baseline it.
Appropriate wear.
Yeah.
I know. I had to take notes. That's what this is. So I can go, wait a minute. So here are our peaks on our baseline, pretty normal, 699.4 pound-feet of torque at 5,300 RPM and 806.4 horsepower up at 6,800 RPM. That's a good number. That's where it rolls over. Kind of a high RPM point, I think, for a cam with 269 on the intake.
If somebody would have asked me what I would guess, I would have been thinking 65, maybe 66, certainly not, 68 or 6,900.
Yeah.
It's for that low duration, it's stretched out pretty good.
And you think that's lobe separation angle and good cylinder
Yeah,
head?
that would be my guess. Need to go look at the card like we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 572 cubic inches.
Yeah, it's either 112 or 14, like we were guessing, I'm sure.
And why do we love big blocks? Because this.
That's a lot of torque.
That's it.
Way back when we ran this on pump gas, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, we did.
pulled the timing back to about 30 degrees and put pump gas in it and ran it. GM was at the time, I think, claiming 12-to-1 compression.
They claim 12.5-to-1, and I did the
Yeah,
math
you
on
did
it.
the
It's
math.
closer to 11.5-to-1 in reality.
Yeah, pretty good stuff. I mean, for that kind of compression ratio, and that's obviously why you gotta love them.
All right, we got to go change camshafts now so that we can alter the firing order on this pooch.
We could do like normal, say, hey, Steve, can you go change that?
It'll take a while. Here's a tip. When I put this thing together, I had actually greased the intake gaskets with red grease, which is a Steve Dulcich tip, which he learned from some old Okie mechanic, and it still works perfectly to this day. Just lets the manifold release without tearing the gasket. So you notice we got a Comp Cam's two-piece cover here, which means that this part stays on the block and the front comes off of it. That's just gonna save us a bunch of time changing camshafts because we don't have to break the seal at the block or, more importantly, at the oil pan. Go.
This is our second camshaft. This is the 4.7 swap firing order.
So that means 4 will fire where number 7 used to fire, and 7 will fire where number 4 used to fire.
4 burst life.
Let me just clarify something for you here, Steve-O. You can't just pick your firing order like you're pulling a rabbit out of a hat, okay? There's only certain cylinders you can swap around, and it has to do with companion cylinders on the crankshaft. And when you have 2 companion cylinders, you can alternate the firing order to one or the other because they're both reaching top dead center at the same time, but only 2 will do that at any given time.
And no matter what you do, there's always, at the end of the day, 2 cylinders firing next to each other at some point in the
That's right.
sequence.
That's just like chasing that little monkey all around the block. But you're always going to have 2 cylinders firing in adjacent firing pulses. There you go. A couple of things you got to keep in mind when it comes to firing order, camshaft, and crankshaft.
This particular timing gear is pretty cool. I actually use it on my personal race engine. You can adjust cam timing, very similar to a timing belt. And if you have a 3-piece cover, you can just take the top half off, leave the balancer intact and everything, and just loosen these bolts, rotate it, and then change cam timing and then snug it again. From the standpoint of a chain, it's about as sophisticated as they get.
Steve is known as Lightning Lash Brule because he can lash rocker arms, lash valves faster than anybody on Earth.
I don't know if I go that far.
Oh, I don't know. Obviously, in addition to changing the camshaft, you have to change the spark plug wire order on the distributor cap, like so. We now have 18736542.
The air hat measures the cubic feet per minute of airflow into the engine. It's got a honeycomb top and it's got a turbine that sends out a voltage signal that's converted to something readable as far as cubic feet per minute go. There's a little fan blade in there, and as air passes it spins the turbine. So it gives us an idea if there's a change in engine performance, whether it's related to airflow or something else.
So what we have now is a 4 and 7 swap. Does it make power?
I don't think it's going to make any difference. And in fact, I don't think you're going to see a change in the air-fuel distribution either, because we can look at that. We've got 8 lambdas in it, so.
I'm going to say maybe.
I'm going to say the last time you and I did this, which was a long time ago, we did see little power gains, and I think it was everywhere in the curve. I think it was. I think we might have seen 6 or 7. Yeah. Okay, we've got our oil already up to temp. Brulé has cheated a little bit because he's seen the power a little bit as he was warming this thing up.
Yeah, didn't go all the way up because I didn't want to really know.
Okay, let's find out. Does the 4 and 7 firing order swap do anything when it comes to horsepower? So here's our results, and we've run this a couple times to make sure that this is consistent. The red lines are the conventional firing order, and black lines is the 4 and 7 swap. And surprisingly, we're seeing power loss below 4,500 RPM.
Don't have a good explanation for it. There's probably a couple things we should check.
I want to go look at the lash on the valves, definitely, to make sure that's consistent.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's also look at the fuel distribution too, cylinder to cylinder.
Yeah, we should look at that.
Because if it's the lash, you wouldn't think it would get better as it's at the top end of the curve, and where it seems like the 4.7 cam's coming on.
If they're tight.
I think the lash could certainly affect the curve and tilt it.
Yeah. If they're all tight, I think it would do that. Adds more duration, so it kills bottom end and adds top.
What I'd like to do is run out there right now while it's hot.
Okay.
And lash it.
And check something
Okay.
and lash it.
All right. Okay, Brule just dashed out of the room before the engine cooled down too much, because what we're going to do is pull the valve covers off and check that valve lash to make sure it's exactly what it was in the first test and that it wasn't affecting our results.
What I'm doing right now is just rechecking the lash with the temperature up on the engine where we run it. I had the opportunity to do that on the first standard firing order camshaft, and so we're just double checking to make sure that there's no variations. I had allowed for about 6 thousandths growth from cold to hot temperatures, but it looks like it only grew about 4 thousandths, and so now we're just going back over all the valve train, making sure they're all at 18 thousandths, so there's just one less thing that could be a variable in the test.
Right, you didn't find much in the lash, did you?
No, it was within 1 or 2, kind of straight through, just the temperature difference is all.
Well, we had to know. So we're going to pull it again with a new lash that's only changed by 1 or 2 thousandths. It shouldn't make a big difference, but we'll see if it makes a difference in the curve.
Might tilt the curve a little, we'll see.
Okay, once again, black is the 4.7 swap and red is standard firing order. I think we're seeing more of a difference than we did before in here and less below 4,500, and that's all just the lash change.
Yeah, by loosening the lash, we picked up a little bit here, and it helped us. We were down so much more before.
Interesting. So basically the 4.7 swap at this point helped it from 4,500 to 6,000 RPM, and then not so much at the top.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's the same. Here are our peak numbers with the 4.7 swap cam. We made 703.6 pound-feet of torque at 5,400 RPM, and up top, 807.3 horsepower at 6,800 RPM.
If you take the average power over that entire curve, it's very, very close, I would imagine.
I think the 4.7 swap's better.
One way to find out.
One way to find out. So we're gonna look at the averages where we take the entire curve, every data point, and you add up all the power numbers, and you divide it by the number of data points, and you can kind of get an idea of overall which one is better. So the numbers that we saw in the difference on average is on torque, the 4.7 swap made 671.8 as an average, and the standard firing order made 669.7. Now on horsepower, the 4.7 swap made 701.3, and the standard 698.9. So the 4.7 swap is definitely better on average.
I have to say so, and we know from the Engine Masters Challenge stuff that a couple of numbers on average is a huge difference.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it in any one point, but overall it's a big difference.
So let's find out why. Can we look at the airflow? Okay, once again, black lines are the 4.7 swap, red lines are the standard firing order, and this is an airflow difference, and it's basically tracking, of course, exactly what the power is doing, but that's because of the power, not the cause, right?
It seems like it's the other way around. It's
You think the airflow is the cause and the power is the effect?
well, the A test is using more air and making less power at the top end. The B test is making less power.
Well, up here they're almost identical in
yeah.
horsepower, and yet you're right, the A test, the standard camshaft, is showing more airflow.
This to me looks just like the power curve.
But up here it
up
doesn't.
To here. Then here it's got the little drop, but it doesn't there, and I don't have an explanation for that.
So now we're going to look at the air-fuel ratio in each individual cylinder because we have oxygen sensors in each header tube, so we can get an idea what's going on in the intake manifold as far as what fuel is going to what cylinder. Yeah, what we're seeing here is that the 4.7 swap caused the air-fuel ratio to be more on the outside of the range, especially in the low RPM range here. You can see that it's got number 6 here as a radical outlier, super lean, 15.5 to 1. That's going to hurt power, and down here it's much more rich. So what's interesting is that I remember years ago when I did a story on this and we were talking about why did the 4.7 swap make power? And a lot of guys philosophized that it was the crankshaft twist, and others said it was the way the intake manifold is drawing fuel out of a carburetor. This seems to indicate that there is a change in the intake manifold. We changed the cylinder-to-cylinder distribution with the firing order. It's just, in this case, it went the wrong way. I'm just frustrated because I feel like we've never had an episode that's this inconclusive, right?
Kind of one of those things that shows you why engine development takes more than a day.
Yeah, well, I guess so.
I don't necessarily think it was a washout. It's just you can't depend on that being the magic bullet. Really, the cam swap to the firing order change.
Well, no, it's not a magic bullet. I guess my former opinion had been you might as well do it. What can it hurt? Well, we just found out what it can hurt. It did something on this particular combination with this carburetor and this intake manifold that ended up making one really lean cylinder, but it also made more power. And I go back to what you pointed out, which is it made more power despite the fact that it's got worse distribution and it showed us that it used less air. So the potential for it to make a ton more power is there. It's more efficient.
Well, I would agree. More air is usually more power.
But I think you're right about saying the average guy just going, oh, I'm gonna do this with my dual plane intake or whatever he's got and stab it in there. You just don't know.
You know, we always come into these looking for power, up or down. There's the other side of that firing order swap too, as far as where it places the load on the crankshaft and all of that and what it does as far as reliability.
From what my research says, that doesn't come into play until you do both the 4 and 7 and the 3 and 2.
Okay.
And the guy who designed the LS engine told me that it took the load off the number 2 main cap and moved it back to, I think he said 4.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's moving the crank pin that has the power overlap on it further rearward in the engine. But
That makes sense.
we didn't test that here. We don't know.
We can't test that.
But I've also heard people tell me the only swap that makes power is 4 and 7. And that when you add 3 and 2, it's not necessarily a power thing, it's a crankshaft longevity thing. But that's all bench racing, and that's what's driving me nuts, is we don't have, like, the facts.
This is a tough one.
It is a tough one. So Steve and I are gonna go argue now because he wants to believe that it does absolutely nothing or that it's a negative.
Not
And
necessarily.
I'm gonna tell him why I think it might be a positive.
I want to hear it.
Okay.
Make your case.
I'll wait and watch.
All right, see you later, Brule. All right, Steve, let me have it.
What do you mean?
You've got opinions, share them.
Well, look, I mean, the swap cam thing, I wouldn't embark on it just off the cuff. I mean, I think we proved it here. It's a thing that can yield big results as part of like a super duper development program where you're really racing and you're after that last little bit of horsepower. But for a street hero guy with a 383 Chevy making 500 horsepower, you can't presume that it's always going to be the right answer.
Okay, I'm going to agree and disagree.
Okay.
Because you said it can be worth big results. I think in the world of what we deal with, it's never going to be worth huge results. I mean, when I've tested, I've seen 8 to 10 numbers, same thing that we saw right here. So I don't think it's ever huge. And furthermore, when you bring up the guy with the average 383 Chevy, I think that if we saw a certain percentage of gain here, let's say it makes 800 horsepower, so it's making a 1% improvement.
Right.
What's that 1% going to be when you're only making 500 horsepower, right?
Oh, you won't feel the difference.
It's going to get into minutia. But the other way I'll disagree with you is I think that my argument is also, what can it hurt?
Well, I
think people have an intake manifold that has distribution problems, whether they have the right firing order or not, and they don't know how to deal with it. So what's the difference?
It may actually make it better depending on what the intake manifold is. You don't know. It might. And that comes back to what I was saying about a development program. And what I mean is someone that's racing in a very high level.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a race boat or something like that, and you're building a 13 or 1400 horsepower NA big block Chevy, and you're experimenting with cams and intakes and you're dyno testing and you're developing.
Yeah.
But just slap it right into a random engine. It's too dependent on the rest of the combination, in my opinion.
And that is, I think, the big thing that we learned here, especially compared with my earlier testing on the same thing, is it's combination dependent. The carburetor, whether it's EFI or not. We talked about running stack injection with EFI to find out if the power is coming from the crankshaft or the intake manifold. There's way too many variables. And so I think the bottom line conclusion is, don't worry about it. Just don't.
I don't think Chevy made a mistake, necessarily.
Well, Ford thought they did.
Yeah, they changed theirs.
They did change theirs.
Yes.
I think for your average day-to-day life, if you're building anything less than what this is right here, it's not going to make a huge difference.
No, that's something. I call that a conclusion, Freiburger.
Just the facts and the opinions here on Engine Masters. 1-873-6542.
It's what you call convertible wear.
Yeah. Oh, Steve, I can see your knees.
I know, I'm wearing my stubbies.
What's wrong with those shorts? Engine Masters style. You cannot have the camo shorts showing the knee. You got to have them just below the knee like this. However, I have recently converted to the black socks. That's Engine Builder Specialist to have black socks. You got black socks, you're good.
I know.
I've got black socks.
I trusted lies that wore a face. Now I'm the ghost you can't replace. Cut by betrayal, stitched by pain, but now I rise unleashed again. You forged a monster in disguise, but I've become your last surprise. I've got a blade within, cutting through all your sins. I won't break, I won't forgive. This is the way I live. Your kingdom falls tonight. from severed ties. You forged a